ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
This will be the 13th lecture on our series on mechanical measurements. We have been discussing about thermometry, the measurement of temperature. We considered in some detail the use of thermocouples to measure temperature using what is called the thermoelectric properties of materials. And what we will do today is to complete that discussion by taking two examples, and then I will take up the study of measurement of temperatures under various circumstances, like for example the measurement of temperature of a surface, measurement of temperature within a solid, and of course measurement of temperature of a moving fluid. These are typical applications which occur in engineering practice. And then the more importantly, we will look at the sources of error in such measurements and how to either estimate these errors or what are the methods which we can use to minimize these errors. These are the things we are going to discuss. I do not think everything will be possible in this particular 1 hour. So whatever is possible we will do, and then of course continue in the next lecture. So to start with, let us look at the two examples which demonstrate the use of some of the principles we have learned in the previous lecture on thermocouple thermometry. And the first example will be the measurement of temperature using a typical thermocouple circuit. And let me just indicate how we are going to do that. We have a thermocouple junction here, and we have the simple thermocouple circuit which is familiar to us. This is the reference junction, this is the measuring junction, this is the positive and the negative here, again the positive, and the measurement is done across the two positive materials. So in the first example, I have the measuring junction at 100 degrees Celsius, and the reference junction TR is at 0 degrees Celsius, or the ice point, and I am using K type thermocouple. So we already know what a K type thermocouple is, and the student is expected to remember what K type means. It is a chromal allumal thermocouple. Chromal is the positive element and the allumal is the negative element. So if the reference temperature is at the ice point and the junction, measuring junction at 100 degrees, we can refer to either a table or we can use a polynomial which we have already indicated earlier, and obtain what is the value of voltage we would be measuring. In this case, from the table we take the value of 4.095 millivolts. So, it is a very simple example. I want to just make a small change here in this example. Instead of taking the reference at the ice point, suppose the reference is not at the ice point, but change to 30 degrees Celsius. This is the, if I say this is case A corresponding to temperature equal to 0 degrees, this will be case B where I have taken the reference junction to be at 30 degrees. So, we can use the law of intermediate temperatures. Actually, the example here is to demonstrate the use of or the application of the 3 laws we proposed in the last lecture. So, the law of the intermediate temperatures is going to be used to figure out what is going to be the output of the circuit. So, we have the following. I will just repeat the same sketch here. This is the voltage, this is Tm, Tr, which is at the room temperature instead of being the ice point now. We know from our very earlier discussion of the law of intermediate temperatures that the output now V will be output with Tm with respect to 0 degrees Celsius. That means that the voltage which would be indicated in the previous case, what we saw in the previous, minus voltage between T R and 0 degrees Celsius. In fact, again we go back to the same table which gives the thermoelectric Seebeck voltage versus temperature, and the table is with respect to 0 degrees Celsius. Therefore, I will be able to directly read these two quantities from the table, and this already has been done. This is equal to 4.095 as in the previous case, minus the corresponding to the room temperature, it is equal to 1.203 millivolts. So, the difference between these two will be 2.892 millivolts. That means, if we do not have the reference at the ice point, but the reference is maintained at the room temperature, the output of the circuit is actually less than in the case where the reference is at the ice point. So, another way of looking at the result is we will be measuring 2.892. To this we have to add 1.203 to get 4.095. Corresponding to 4.095 from the table I will be reading 100 degrees. So, it is in the reverse order. Okay, this is an example which shows how to use the law of intermediate temperatures. Let me take another example which is slightly more interesting. What has been done is we have, again we are using the K type thermocouple. The following circuit has been made. This is the second example for today. So, we have the measuring junction at 500 degrees, and we are going to use extension wires to connect it to the outside. So, what has happened is this is a K positive, that is K type positive, this is K type negative, and extension wires are connected to a block junction box. We have already discussed the use of a junction box which is maintained at 40 degrees centigrade. And what happened is, by mistake, negative element has been connected to the positive terminal and the positive element to the negative terminal, and I am measuring the output here. This is the ice point, I have connected like this. So, the mistake is that the positive and the negative elements have been switched at the junction box. So, this is the wrong connection, and we would like to find out what is the consequence of such a mistake. For this, we can find out what is the voltage read by the voltmeter. We can go around the circuit. We will see that V correspond to 500 due to the hot junction. This is from plus to minus. I am going from this direction, or you can go in the other direction. It does not matter how you are going. So, the 500 degrees I will get a positive voltage, let us say. Then I will get a negative voltage correspond to 40 degrees. So, actually I am going the other way. This would give you positive, and then I am going from positive to negative here. Here I am going from negative to positive, positive to negative. I will get minus V 40, all with respect to 0 degrees, because we are going to use the same table. Then from negative to positive again. So, this will be plus V corresponding to 0 degree Celsius. So, we are going like this, and here again we are going in this direction, positive to negative. So, it will be minus V at 40 degrees Celsius. So, we can put the values here. 500 degrees, the value from the table is 20.640. This is 1.611, all in millivolts. This will be 0, and this again 1.611. This gives a value of 17.418 millivolts. Just remember that what was intended is that K plus should have been connected to K plus here and K minus to K minus here, then everything would have been all right. If it were the case, these two would cancel each other and I would get V 500. So, what should I have got? The correct reading, correct value is 20.64, corresponding to 500 degrees. But what we have got is 17.418, and if you were to convert this to a temperature, because this is what I would read, I would not be obtaining this 17.418 by calculation like this. What I would get is directly the reading from the voltmeter. This would be the reading, and if I convert this reading to the temperature, it will correspond to 424.2 degrees Celsius. What we wanted to measure is 500, and what we are inferring is 424. So, you see that there is a very large error. So, if I were to connect it properly, I should do like this. This is K plus, this is K minus, this is at 500 degrees Celsius, and this is the junction box which may be at 40 degrees. I am going to come K plus here, and this goes to 0 degrees ice point, and this is K minus, this is also K minus. I will be measuring the voltage here. This is the correct arrangement. In this case, the voltage reading would be equal to V at 500 degrees, corresponding to that it will be 20.640 millivolt. So, a mistake in connecting the wrong terminals could lead to a large error, as we have seen from this example. You saw the large error 500, 424, almost 75 degrees or 76 degrees error is there. So, the error is because of the wrong connection which has been made. So, I will take one more simple example. Suppose we connect a large number of thermocouples in parallel. Let us just look at the arrangement. So, I will call it the parallel connection. Suppose I have a junction here, we let junction 1, a junction 2, junction 3, junction 4. So, I am going to, these are the wires. I have taken 4 junctions. I am going to connect all the negative terminals all the positives and all the negatives I have connected. So, I am going to measure the output across this. So, I have the, if you see here what is happening, suppose this is the temperature T1, this is the temperature T2, this is temperature T3, this is temperature T4. The output is now not the output from a single thermocouple, but it is something which is going to be due to all the 4 thermocouples are connected to the terminals plus or minus now in parallel. If the temperatures are all the same, if T1 equal to T2 equal to T3 equal to T4, I will simply get the value of one of those temperatures, T1 or the T2 or the T3 or the T4. However, if one of them is bigger than the other and so on, because these, now you can see, for example, this makes a circuit, there is actually circuits now, it is in fact not open circuit like we would like to have. A thermocouple is used in the open circuit mode, but here they are following some loops. You can see that there are some loops formed, and because of that currents will flow, and therefore, what will happen is that the output voltage will be only one value, which will correspond to the mean value of the temperature, mean of the 4 temperatures. Because the currents are going to flow, it will be equivalent to whatever we are going to measure is equal to the mean of the 4 temperatures. Sometimes T1, T2, T3, T4 may be temperatures at 4 different points within a material, and I would like to find out what is the average temperature in the material. Of course, these may be very close to each other. T1 may be 30 degrees, T2 may be 31, T3 may be 29, and T4 may be 28, and so on. So, what will happen is, if I connect like this, I will get directly the average temperatures averaged over the 4 thermocouples. In this case, it can be more or less than this. This is not like the case where we had. In the other case earlier, we had a thermopile where they were all connected in series, and in that case the voltages were adding. Here the voltages are all going to average out. So, the voltage averaging means the temperature which is going to be indicated is the average of the 4 temperatures. Sometimes deliberately we connect the thermocouples so that we can directly measure the average temperature without going through the calculation of different temperatures T1, T2, T3, T4 separately, and then adding together and dividing by 4 to get the mean. You can do it directly by connecting in this particular parallel fashion. So, with these examples, I will go back to the slides where we were talking about the things we are going to cover in the present lecture. So, we have looked at samples, examples 12 and 13, which were worked out on the board. Now, I am going to look at what are the things which are involved when we want to measure the temperature at a surface, inside a solid, and of a flowing fluid. The reason why I want to do this is to indicate the way we are going to do that physically, what is the method we are going to use, and secondly, what are the sources of error in such measurement, that is also importance to us. These errors we are going to talk about are systematic errors which occur because of some specific reasons, and in fact we will try to identify the reasons why these errors occur, and we will try to find out if we can give some idea about how to calculate this or how to estimate these errors. So, let me take the examples one by one. We would like to measure the temperature of a surface. In the slide I am showing a body which is made up of a material which is of a plastic material, possibly not very good conductor of heat. The nature of the material is going to play a role. That is why what we have done is, in order to measure the surface temperature, I have used a copper disc which is embedded on the surface, and the copper disc is a very thin copper sheet of 0.25 millimeter thick here in this case, and the diameter is roughly 3 millimeter diameter. It is like a button which has been embedded on the surface, flush mounted on the surface. So, what I am trying to do is to measure, instead of measuring the temperature of the plastic model wall, I have just introduced a button which is going to be the object whose temperature I am going to measure. And I have an embedded thermocouple which is introduced from the bottom, as you can see here. So, I have the thermocouple coming here, and possibly inside this copper disc I can make a small hole and embed the thermocouple junction inside the hole, and the thermocouple is taken out from the bottom, and the junction is somewhere within the copper disc. And because the copper disc or the copper material has got a very high thermal conductivity, it is possible or it is expected that the temperature is more or less uniform throughout the copper button or copper disc. A second point with respect to this copper disc is, suppose we have a fluid which is flowing over the surface, a fluid is flowing over the surface on the top here, it will move past the copper disc and it will be in good contact with the copper disc, and because copper disc is a very good conductor, the amount of heat transferred if there is a temperature difference between the fluid and the surface is sizable, is the effective heat transfer can take place, so that we expect if the velocity is big enough, the difference in temperature of the fluid and the surface will be very small. So, we expect, in fact, the temperature of the surface here can be used, the temperature which we measure can be used as a measure of the effectiveness of the heat transfer which is taking place from the medium to the surface. Okay. So, the copper disc is getting heated from the top if the temperature of the fluid is different from the temperature of the surface, and possibly there can be some amount of heat loss due to the thermocouple which is connected to the bottom. The thermocouple consists of two wires, as we know, and the wires are highly thermally conducting, and they will conduct away some of the temperature, some of the heat which is from the copper disc. Therefore, we expect the temperature of the fluid to be higher than the temperature of the copper disc, which will be higher than the temperature of the thermocouple which is embedded inside that. So, we expect some kind of a temperature variation from this side to the other side. In fact, the error in the temperature measured in this particular case can be calculated based on some of the thermal quantities. We will take it up a little later, we will give the appropriate formula. It will what are the variables which will play an important role? The surface area of the copper disc will play an important role, and the larger the surface area of the copper disc, the better is the heat transfer from the fluid to the copper disc, and therefore, you can reduce the error by having a large copper disc here and by using very thin wires for the thermocouple which is attached to the bottom. The second example I am going to take is the temperature measurement within a solid by using a thermocouple. So, the solid material is shown here at the bottom, and the way the temperature is going to be measured is by using a thermocouple which is inserted into a blind hole. So, I have a long blind hole, a deep blind hole whose length is L, and the thermocouple is embedded up to that depth. The thermocouple is actually here at the bottom of this well, and between the thermocouple and the side walls of the drilled hole, I can use some kind of a packing material which is a good thermal conductor. So, we can use some material which conducts heat effectively, so that there is a good thermal contact between the thermocouple and the walls of the hole drilled into the material. So, we will see how it is going to affect the measurement of temperature. And of course, the lead wire has to be taken out, there is no other go. The thermocouple is taken out and it is probably exposed to an ambient at T infinity, that is shown here, and maybe some amount of convective heat transfer is taking place between the outside of the lead wire and the ambient. Some of you have done your course in heat transfer earlier would be able to follow some of the arguments, and others who do not have a background in heat transfer may have to wait till a later stage when you study heat transfer to understand some of the things which we are going to talk about. What I will do here is to give the basic ideas without bringing in too much of mathematics, and then finally I will give simply without proof some of the results which can be used to calculate some of these errors. So, the idea is just to give a physical background about the heat transfer phenomena which is taking place, find out what are the appropriate formulae and stop there. We will not go ahead and discuss how to derive these formulae. We will just use a very user approach instead of using the approach of somebody who wants to learn about the in detail. We will just we would like to get a working knowledge of how to calculate these errors instead of going deep into the subject itself. So, the lead wire is outside, and it may be connected to a voltmeter far away, and the heat transfer or heat transfer through this lead wire can be modeled, which I will take up little later. And therefore, what will happen again is, if the temperature of the solid is Ts, which let us say is greater than T infinity, it is Ts is greater than T infinity. Of course, if Ts is less than T infinity, everything will be, all the heat transfer will be in the other opposite direction, whatever we are talking about. So, solid is Ts, I want to measure the temperature of the solid, but when I embed the thermocouple and put it here, I am going to measure the temperature indicated by thermocouple, which if there is a heat loss from the thermocouple through the thermocouple, it means that Tt will be less than Ts. Tt will be less than Ts. So, the difference between Ts and Tt is in fact the systematic error in the measurement in this particular installation. So, now if you look at this sketch, I have drawn a deep hole and used some material of high thermal conductivity, so that there will be good thermal contact between the solid and the wire which is, or the thermocouple wire which is going through the hole, so that the temperature difference between Ts and Tt I want to make it as small as possible. This can be done by the following. One is have a very good thermal contact between the cable and the hole which is drilled into the solid, number one. Number two, have a very deep hole L, very large compared to the diameter of the wire. If you do that, you can actually reduce the temperature error Ts minus Tt. If indeed it is possible to send it to a very long hole, a very deep hole, then you may even be able to eliminate the difference between Ts and Tt. And also see to it that the outside it is not exposed to a very high heat transfer coefficient, because that is also not good for this. So, there are three temperatures I have shown here, Ts, Tt, and there is a T00, which is the temperature at this plane where the thermocouple is just coming out, and this temperature will be less than Tt, T00 will be less than Tt, Tt will be less than Ts, and T infinity will be again less than T 0. Therefore, there is heat transfer coming from the solid, entering through the sides of the hole, going through the thermocouple, and again eventually going into the ambient. So, whenever you have heat transfer taking place from a region of high temperature to low temperature, there will be gradients, and these gradients manifest as a error, because what I am going to measure is T t, which is what is going to be indicated by the thermocouple voltage which I measure. Therefore, T s minus T t will be the error in the temperature in this particular installation. The next case is the case of measuring the temperature of a fluid which is flowing inside a duct or a pipe or a tube. Many times what happens is that we do not want to have a direct contact between the thermal sensor, a thermocouple, or any other temperature sensor and the fluid which is flowing inside. A typical example could be a tube or a pipe carrying steam at high pressure. We would not like to have any direct contact between the steam and the thermocouple material. We would like to have no leakages whatsoever. Therefore, necessarily we will have to introduce what is called a thermometer well. Thermometer well is something like what is shown here. A well is made of an annulus, a tube which is inserted into the medium. The fluid is flowing like this at a temperature T f, and the thermometer well is sticking right into the tube in a direction perpendicular to the flow. The fluid is flowing in a direction which is indicated by this arrow. The well is kept in this direction. Again, there is a depth of immersion. This L, the length of the well is called the depth of immersion, and you can see that the thermocouple is attached to the bottom of the well. The thermocouple is attached to the bottom of the well, and it is taken out and is connected to the external circuit. And the well itself is made usually of some material like brass or steel. It could even be copper, aluminum, any material which one can think of. The choice of the material depends on many factors which will be taken up a little later. We will talk about it. The idea is the well must be able to separate out the fluid or prevent the fluid from direct contact with the thermometer, number one. It should be strong enough so that there is no leakages, there is no chance of any rupture of the well and so on. So, it has to be, so it will have a inner diameter of di as is shown here. Di is the inner diameter of the well, and the outer diameter is do. And let us look at the heat transfer mechanism. The fluid which is at a temperature, let us say higher than the ambient temperature and the temperature of the wall which is shown as Tw, it is going to actually flow past this well and it is going to dump some heat into the well if the well is at a temperature lower than the fluid temperature. So, again we are talking about some temperature gradients being existing in this. So, why do the temperature gradients exist? Because the well is connected to the wall of the tube or the wall of the duct, and if the wall of the duct is at a temperature different from the fluid temperature, let us say in this case less than the fluid temperature, obviously there is a temperature gradient along the length of the well. So, there is a temperature variation from here to here, and in fact I have shown the T subscript T as the temperature of the bottom of the well, which is what is being measured by the thermometer or the thermocouple, and as you approach the wall of the duct, the temperature will become equal to Tw. Therefore, there is a thermal gradient along the length. So, this thermal gradient along the length gives rise to some amount of heat transfer from the fluid through the well to the outside or to the wall of the duct, and therefore, there will be a difference in temperature between Tf and T subscript T, and that is the thermometric error in this particular case. Again, as we saw in the last case, in the previous case of solid material, the length of the immersion is going to play an important role. The other things which are going to play an important role are the size, physical size, that is di and d0, and also the thermal conductivity of the material of the well. These are going to be important parameters. That means that the physical dimensions di and d0, which are geometric parameters, the length of immersion is also a geometric parameter, and then we have the thermal conductivity of the material of the well. And of course, when a fluid is flowing normal to a cylinder like this, the well appears as a cylinder as far as the fluid is concerned. there will be exchange of heat because of the flowing fluid, and the effectiveness of the heat transfer mechanism is determined by the velocity of the fluid through the Reynolds number. So, we will be actually looking for some relationship that exists between the Reynolds number of the fluid flowing past the tube and the effective heat transfer coefficient in this particular application. And then thirdly, the thermometer well may have an emissivity of surface equal to epsilon. So, some amount of heat transfer may also take place by radiation from the surface of the well to the wall of the duct. So, to cut the story short, the thermometric error Tf minus Tt, which is the error, will depend on various parameters which go into the particular problem, and exactly how this is going to be done will be looked at later on. So, in the previous case I mentioned that the length of immersion is going to be an important parameter. The maximum length of immersion of course could be limited to about, at the most it could be going from one end to the other end. Okay, that may not be the best thing to do. It may be going from there to, let us say, somewhere in the middle of the tube or the middle of the duct. So, in order to increase or have larger values for L possible, we can immerse in a direction different from the normal direction we took here. So, thermowell alignment can be changed. It can be in a vertical fashion like this. The flow is taking place from left to right. The probe is radial if it is a tube, or it could be at an angle to this thing, or it could be also like it comes like this and then takes a turn, and it could be like that. So, in fact, I would like to show what other possibilities are there. So, you have the tube which is carrying the fluid, whose temperature I would like to measure. I can actually make the probe like this. That means that the length of the probe effectively is this length. So, if I make it long in this direction and then with a 90-degree bend here, so the output is going to be measured there. This is connected to the voltmeter, and I have a very long length. Okay. So, the length of the immersion is an important parameter which is going to be playing an important role in determining the size of the error, and therefore, there is one thing which we are going to look at. The next thing, actually we have shown a probe in that particular fashion. Here I am looking at shielding to reduce the amount of radiation which takes place from the thermocouple or the probe to the walls. In this case, suppose the fluid is at a high temperature, the wall is at a temperature lower than the Tf. If I have the bare thermocouple or the probe alone without the shield which is shown here, the temperature of the probe will be intermediate between Tf and Tw, such that the amount of heat transfer from the fluid to the probe, if it is equal to the heat transfer from the probe to the wall, that will be the equilibrium condition, and the temperature of the probe will take up such a value that this equilibrium is achieved. Okay. Suppose the temperature is high enough that radiation is important, and if you remember, radiation is proportional to the fourth power of temperature. If I surround this probe with a shield, which is usually a metallic cylinder which is made of highly polished material, so that it has got a low emissivity, the probe is not in direct view of the wall. It is actually going to view only the shield, and therefore, it is going to have heat transfer. The heat transfer is going to take place from the probe to the shield, and the shield outside will of course have heat transfer taking place to the walls of the duct, which is at a lower value. At the same time, both the probe as well as the shield is in convective contact or contact with the hot fluid. So, there will be some heat transfer from the fluid to the shield also. So, what will happen in this case is that if you have a radiation shield surrounding this probe, the temperature of the shield, which will be in between the value of the fluid temperature and the wall temperature, will be the effective background temperature for the probe, and therefore, the amount of radiation heat transfer from the probe to the shield will be smaller than if the shield were not there, it would have been between the radiation probe and the wall of the tube. Therefore, you are going to reduce the radiation error by having a surrounding shield like this. Sometimes the shield is also made in the form of a nozzle, a converging diverging nozzle, so that the fluid which is entering and going past the probe is made to go at a velocity much higher than the velocity prevailing in the duct itself. Okay. So, if you remember the basic heat transfer ideas, if the fluid velocity increases, it is the heat transfer efficiency of the heat transfer between the fluid and the surface also increases, and therefore, if I increase the velocity by having a small shield come some arrangement which is going to make the velocity go up in the form of an internal nozzle arrangement, then I will have a high velocity stream flowing past the thermocouple probe, and therefore, the heat transfer by convection is improved. Because of the shield, heat loss by radiation is decreased, and therefore, we expect the temperature of the probe to be much closer to the temperature of the fluid, and therefore, the error in temperature which is going to be present is going to be reduced. So, shielded thermocouple arrangement is recommended for high temperature applications where you want to measure the temperature of a high temperature stream. So, we will try to now summarize the observations we have made in the previous cases by considering all the different paths for heat transfer in an arrangement where we want to measure the temperature of a flowing gas stream. The sensor is the central thing, and it is connected to the walls by a lead or some support arrangement. The probe consists of, in fact, the leads or whatever support arrangement we have, plus the sensor at the tip of that probe. The gas which is going to flow in the tube or in the application is going to flow past the sensor, and therefore, there may be some amount of heat transfer from the gas to the sensor through convection, because there is a direct contact between the medium and the surface, and it may also be by radiation from the gas. If it is a very high temperature gas, some amount of gas radiation may also be involved. As far as the sensor is concerned, it is now, if it were to get heat transfer only from the gas and there was no loss mechanism, then quickly it will achieve a temperature equal to the temperature of the gas, and there is no error at all in this application. However, because the sensor has to be connected to a wall through a leads or the support arrangement, some amount of conduction loss is going to take place, or for example, if you have thermocouple wires, the wires themselves will conduct some amount of heat away from the junction, and the junction will be at a lower temperature if there were, because of this conduction error. Therefore, conduction is one mechanism which is going to be a loss mechanism as far as the sensor is concerned, some amount of heat loss taking place by conduction. Then again it may be in viewing some surfaces which are cool or cold compared to the gas temperature. Therefore, some amount of radiation loss may take place, and in fact, as I have shown here, some amount of conduction heat transfer may take place with leads, and the leads themselves may lose heat by radiation to the surroundings. And again, of course, there is convection directly from the gas also to the leads, because leads are also in contact with the leads or the support is also in contact with the gas which is flowing. Therefore, the error in the measurement of the temperature, which is a specific or systematic error, will depend on the effectiveness of the heat transfer mechanism between the gas and the sensor as compared to the effectiveness of the heat transfer mechanisms from the sensor to all the other things with which it is in physical contact. So, the equilibration or equilibrium will be achieved when the amount of heat transferred from the gas to the sensor is exactly balanced by the heat losses through various means, the conduction error, the radiation error, and so on. So, a calculation of the errors will require an understanding of these phenomena and these processes which are going to take place, and therefore, we can identify the sources of errors in temperature measurement as I have done here. One source of error is the sensor interference with the process. That means that because we have put a probe into the stream whose temperature I want to measure, some heat transfer process is going to take place. In this case, for example, conduction error in surface temperature measurement, for example, conduction through the lead wires of the thermocouple attached to the back of that copper stub. That copper button had a thermocouple which would attach to the bottom, and the wires could take away some heat by conduction from the surface. So, conduction error in surface temperature measurement is one example where a sensor interferes with the process by actually taking away some heat. In some cases, sensor may interfere with the process as well as other environments. This is where the radiation error comes to the picture. It takes away heat by conduction possibly, and then it loses heat by radiation also. Therefore, radiation error is a typical example where there is a interference between the process as well as other modes of heat transfer. That means other environments means other modes of heat transfer. While measuring temperatures of moving fluids, convection and conduction processes interact, and therefore, they lead to the systematic error. In case of high speed flow, which is involved in aerospace applications, viscous dissipation effects may also be important. That means that the conversion of kinetic energy of fluid to internal energy, and when kinetic energy is converted to internal energy in the because of viscous forces, the temperature will go up. The fluid will actually heat up very close to the probe, because the probe is in a region where the boundary layer is going to be present right next to the probe, and the high speed flow is going to decelerate right next to the flow, next to the surface, and because of large velocity gradients which are present near the probe surface, there may be significant amount of heating. So, in high speed applications, this may be a very important error which has to be taken into account. But in normal practice, for example, air conditioned ducts carrying conditioned air, or hot water application where you have hot water flowing through a fluid through a tube, in a heat exchanger application for example, these viscous effects are not important, and we may be only involved in accounting for convection and conduction errors, and to some extent may be radiation errors in some extreme cases. So, in order to probe further into the mechanism of heat transfer and also to understand how to calculate, we will propose some way of looking at this whole process. So, the first one I am going to consider is the conduction error through the wires, and it can be easily modeled, and the model requires two things. One is the modeling of the lead wire, what exactly it means we will see in a moment, and then the second one is the process of heat loss or the heat transfer through conduction. So, there are two aspects to this problem. One is to model the lead wire, and then the second one is to model the heat transfer process. We will try to explain this physically in this class, in this lecture, and then we will continue in the next lecture from there onwards. So, the lead wire model, what it tries to do is to look at this complicated thing here. A thermocouple consisting of two wires, wire number 1, for example, it may be K type, in which case it may be chromal wire, and this may be aluminum wire, or it may be a T type thermocouple. So, you know what are the two materials for the corresponding one. So, this may be copper and this may be copper constantan for example, and the wire 1 and wire 2 normally they have the same diameter wires. So, RW1 and RW2 I have written for generality, but they can be the same equal to RW, and the two materials obviously have two different thermal conductivities. So, thermal properties of the two materials are different, and K1 and K2, and these two wires are laid parallel to each other at a certain distance between them, so that there is no physical contact along the length of the wire between these two materials, and it is surrounded by an insulation whose thermal conductivity may be Ki, for example. Okay. And the insulation will have major dimension L1 and a minor dimension equal to L2. So, what I am going to do is, I am going to look for an equivalent single wire model. An equivalent single wire model would replace this arrangement at the left, which shows the actual arrangement, by a single wire of radius equal to R1 surrounded by a single cylindrical annulus, which is an insulating layer of radius equal to R2. So, what is the equivalence? How do we do that one? And the principle is very important, very simple. The area of cross section of the two wires we know, and if they are of the same area of cross section, if the same radius, the area of cross section is pi r W1 squared or equal to pi r W2 squared. So, the requirement is that the area of cross section must be, actually the thermal conductivity area of product must be the same when you take this arrangement and compare to this arrangement. So, K1 A1 plus K2 A2 equal to K A product for this. So, if K1 and K2, so if A1 and A2 are the same, it becomes A into K1 plus K2, where A is the radius, the area of cross section of each wire. So, A into K1 plus K2 is equal to the effective thermal conductivity area product for this wire. So, if we assume that K1 plus K2 is taken out, the area of cross section being the same, there is twice the area here, and so what I will do is I will take the R1 equal to square root of 2 RW, that will give the same area of cross section. And for the insulation layer, the R2 will be effectively L1 plus L2 divided by 4. This is what is supposed to model this insulation. This is simply a model. That means that we are trying to estimate the error in temperature measured because of conduction, and it is adequate to make a model of this type, because the error itself is assumed to be small in any application, and we are trying to account for it by an approximate calculation procedure. If we want to actually do a very realistic job of the whole thing, it becomes a difficult process, and usually it is not warranted for most of the applications. The second part to this model is the heat transfer model. So, the assumption we are going to make as far as the lead wire conduction model is concerned is that now I have written a cross section, longitudinal cross section of the wire. So, I have a wire in the middle, a solid cylinder here surrounded by an insulation layer. So, the second assumption I will make is that the heat transfer in the wire is in the axial direction. So, the heat transfer in the wire is in the axial direction, while the heat flow in the insulation which is surrounding it is in the radial direction. The reason why this kind of an assumption is valid or acceptable is that the thermal conductivity of the material of the wire is usually very high compared to the thermal conductivity of the material of the insulation, and therefore, the heat transfer axial direction in the wire is much more significant compared to heat transfer in the axial direction in the insulation layer. Therefore, I can ignore the heat transfer in the axial direction in the insulation and assume only heat transfer in the radial direction. That is because the temperature of the wire is different from the ambient, and the heat transfer in the radial direction is due to heat transfer through this insulation layer plus heat transfer from the surface due to convection from the surface to the ambient. And in fact, what we will do, which we will show in the next lecture, is to look at an effective resistance to heat transfer from the surface of the wire to the ambient. So, we will model the heat transfer in the lead wire or heat conduction in the lead wire by axial conduction in the wire, followed by a radial conduction in the insulation layer. So, the analysis which we are going to present in the next lecture, because there is not enough time in this lecture, will be to model the heat transfer, which is essentially axial in the wire and radial in the insulation by an one dimensional analysis. This one dimensional analysis is similar to the fin analysis which is made in heat transfer applications, and therefore, what we will do is we will not give all the mathematical details, we will directly borrow the results from fin theory or fin equation model, and we will just show how the thermometric error due to the conduction in the lead wires can be modeled easily by fin analysis. So, we will borrow the results from heat transfer theory, and then we will try to use it and probably demonstrate it by taking a simple example. Thank you.